Finding Hope, the Road to Recovery.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Finding Hope, the Road to Recovery. I'm Dr. James B. Golden. I'm back again with another incredible episode. And today is really special. I have somebody here who is a really important person to me, not just as someone who works with me, but someone that I've gotten to watch on an incredible journey from TTC College through his career and now as a community pillar. His name is Justin Lawrence, and we titled this episode today, Brotherhood and Healing, From Prison to Community Pillar. This is Justin. I can't tell you more. You need to listen and you definitely need to watch, but we're talking about how people move from systems where you're trying to figure out where to go from here. You come out and then you give your life to service in mental health and substance use. So I am proud today to welcome Justin Lawrence.
I would clap it up. I'm honored. I almost wanted to say who you were talking about, you know what I mean? But I'm honored only by the grace of God that I'm here. What an honor to be here on this platform, an honor to be part of TTCC, honor to be part of TTC, my alumni brothers, my fellowship, my family, my friends. What an honor.
And Justin, I want to take a moment and really go through your life, because your life is so inspirational. And I think a lot of the viewers and people who are interested in Tarzana and interested in the show, they are going to resonate with your story. But what you've been able to do has been remarkable. And I count it an honor and a blessing to call you not only someone who works with me, but you're a part of my family and you're a very important person to all of us. So thank you for your service. Let's go back. I want to go all the way back, and I want to take me back to your introduction to this community, and in particular, how you ended up in the criminal justice system.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of components that kind of make this manuscript of who my past, right? I was born in Inglewood, and I was a traveling kid. My mother worked extremely hard. I had 4 other siblings acquired over the years. And with a lot of traveling from Inglewood all the way to San Diego to Georgia, and Georgia to the Valley. There's a lot of different experiences that went on there. I went on to go to a private university, and I met my first love in a certain way. I learned how to try my mechanism to cope. Mm-hmm. And I grew fond of drinking, and and it was just off and selling from there, to keep it short.
So alcohol was a big substance for you.
I think alcohol mixed with marijuana. It seemed something that we did. It was a lot of different tumultuous things that taking place in my life at the time. And I never saw it for what it was. I was just in it, like a fish in water. We can't really see what's really going on, right? And don't know anything else, right? Mm. It progressed, just like, the literature says. It didn't happen overnight. Alcohol, weed turned into cocaine, and often running with methamphetamines, and it really drifted me about, man. And
how young were you when you really started to get into these substances? Was this more so like early childhood, or did you wait until later on?
I think it's funny because a lot of people's stories are different on how they become are introduced to like substances. You know, my mother never drank. Wasn't much of a drinker. Mm-hmm. My mother didn't smoke, right? And when I look back at it in hindsight, there was an onset, right, when I would detach from my mother and family disputes. And, you know, at one point, the ideology at the time was I didn't even want to be around somebody that smoked cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
I was a sports athlete. And when I detached from there, I think there was something that happened there, right? A drive that was limited to something else, right? And, you know, something, the levee broke, if you want to say, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I gave into, you know, the idea of maybe if I ingested this, it'd make me feel a little better, right? And,
let me just ask, just for the sake, we know each other. When you say detachment, is this you being pulled from your family or you leaving your family?
Yeah, so there was obviously some family disputes, right? And, you know, I was kind of separated from the herd. And I think that was I think that was the onset to a lot of different things, right? Emotional challenges, trauma, you know, and the list kind of goes on, and all these new feelings and not being able to identify with these feelings that were going on at the time, and then developing. Absolutely. And it was at a time where, you know, I'm a young man, you know, and, you know, for the better half of my life, didn't have a father, right? And so there was a lot of different internal conflicts I was having at the time.
And that's interesting that you say that, because that's not necessarily a unique story, particularly in the Black community.
Yes.
You know, when I think about a lot of our students, what's interesting about TTC College is that our students come from the community that we serve.
Right.
It's a reflection of Los Angeles. So, you know, we have as many Latino students coming to our school as we have population-wise in the community. And part of that is because we want to make sure that we're servicing everybody. So when you talk about what it was like to be separated from your family, when you talk about some of the different traumas that you experience, in mental health, we call that adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
And that's something that it's not unique. You know, it's something that so many people of color, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, they have these experiences that end up shaping the rest of our lives, right. Whether it's substance use or physical medical conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, stress, worry, heart attacks. There's so many things that come from that. So hearing you say that, just know that you're in a community that there's a lot of people, including me, who have really understood how a young person can really get separated and have a lot of these experiences. Yeah,
I mean, the more work that I do of myself, right? I consider myself in recovery. So it's everyday assessment, everyday learning experience, right? God wakes me up. I say, if God will, I can. And if he can, I will, right? And so as I work on myself and work with others and, you know, sponsees and clients, and I realize there's more commonality, adverse, complex, but there's also complex trauma that really is needs to be unfolded, right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of our viewers would be interested. What is complex trauma from your perspective, and what are some examples of how that might have come up in your own life?
Well, I think it's kind of like, without going too much detail, I got to keep some value, but right. You know, there's a lot of different facets to traumas, and especially when overlooked or not treated, they kind of compile and over time overtake a person, right? And so it's kind of hard to kind of dissect where the trauma, where the hurt is happening, right? And I think they show up in a multitude of different things, and for the most part, you know, the critical element to assessment, you know, it shows throughout the continuum of care, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's not assessed correctly, then everything is altered, right? And so I think it's very important to have these in-depth conversations, especially in the field, of what's really going on, right? And it's kind of hard to have these conversations with somebody that doesn't know how to identify. Something that it was kind of like resonates with me, right?
And these are people who would have a hard time identifying with the traumas that the people in front of them are experiencing if they're counselors.
Right, yeah. It's repressed. So, they haven't thought about it. But when they get a closer look, then it kind of stands out. Oftentimes, and you find that in the rooms, right? That a person, you hear your story up there, right? Yeah. And it breaks it open and says, wow, I went through that as well. Right, like the fish and water thing. If you never, you never had a father, right? And you're going to football games, and you kind of repress that memory of fathers showing up for their sons, right. And nobody in there. You get a touchdown, and nobody's there to cheer for you, right? And so that's a trauma, right?
Absolutely.
And it's repressed. We don't think about it, but I think that's what the bigger picture is. I think that's why I always suggest. I'm a big rooms guy. I think that's. I think we learn through our ears. I think the disease model, brain disease model, right? It's centered in our thinking. Mm-hmm. That has there's a spiritual malady that's taking place within people, all right? And the Band-Aid is the substances, right? Or the behaviors, right?
For a lot of our patients, and we teach this at the college as well, when it comes to dealing with the traumas, you're talking about complex traumas that people experience, and whether it's not seeing dad and watching all your other teammates see dad, or it's separation from your family, or if in my case, it was a heavy amount of grief. Like I lost a lot of people and had these really tragic deaths that threaded throughout my life. And no matter what kind of trauma you're going through, you're looking for ways to cope. You're looking for outlets and ways to feel normal, or to be okay with what's going on, or to silence some of the thoughts that are coming up. And a lot of people do turn to substances.
Right.
Especially in our community, because we live in areas where it's accessible. I grew up in families where my family were partaking in substances all the time,
right.
Smoking weed, drinking, pills. It was something that as a child I was able to actually see.
Right.
And so coming now as an adult and reliving some of these traumas, or watching other people relive them, do you find any stories that are really difficult for you to deal with when you hear them from your patients?
There have been difficult stories. I think I'm at peace with a lot of my background. I give thanks to my background in an odd sense, right? Because those aches and pains are what made me today. And it's for moments such as these, right? And so I have to be careful not to be strongly suggesting to somebody that's not there or pre-contemplating, right? Because you want to help, because you've been there. And I know that there's a process to it, right? I know we also deal with substance abuse, which is a life or death thing, right? And so
absolutely, today it's very much life or death.
It doesn't pay to be a drug addict these days, right? Or suffer with a substance use disorder. It just doesn't pay. You're trying to go up and you're starting to go down, right? And so with that unfairness and some of the real devastation that happens within the substance abuse or active substance abuse, it is daunting to me to try to take advantage of the moments that I have with an individual, right? And so I might take more than, the limited time that we've been assigned, because I know that if I don't, that person may not, this person may AWOL or AMA, and we'll never see that person again. And, that's for a later conversation.
And we're going to get into your strategies for sure in the second part. For you, what made you feel like, I need to get on a path to recovery? Because it's one thing to actively use, it's one thing to be involved, but then where does the light come on that says, you know what, I actually want to become sober? What did that look like for you? What thoughts were you having?
Well, I think this is the onset to the criminality, something I didn't get to touch on, right? Of course, using drugs, you're not going to show up for work. You're not around your family. You don't have a license. You don't have the basic.
Your behavior changes.
Behavior changes, and so does everything else, right? And the art of being powerless, right? I like to use that as the first step, right? I was pretty powerless for quite some time without a job. So obviously the criminal element was part of my story, right? Not that I was really a criminal, but just the fact that I couldn't go to a 9-to-5 and be coherent and work, right? And so I ultimately ended up in LA County jails and prisons, but the road to me actually coming to that onset of saying like, hey, I need to try something else, was that in prison, what they call CDCR, right? Mm-hmm. I was at my best, meaning that I was abstinent from drugs. I conditioned my mind. I read a lot. I adhered to a lot of rules and regulations, right? Not from the Justice Department, from the CDC, but also from the politics that go on, right? I was at my best. I was on point, but something happened once I was relinquished back into society.
So just so I'm clear, when you went down, when you went into jail, you felt like that was a period of cleansing where you literally stopped using and you were reading more and doing other things.
Right. I mean, it's an environmental shift. There's a lot of different elements that are taking place when you get locked up. First of all, I didn't have a lot of money, right? Yeah. And so that was all factors. The more of a militant look was the best option for me. I knew that it was a life or death thing at any point in time, right? And so it's just a mind shift that took place, right? Was it ultimately effective? No, because I didn't have anybody to navigate me. I didn't want to identify that I was an addict, right? It took a lot.
That's hard. It's very difficult for people.
Absolutely.
The labels. You hear these things like, oh, you're an addict, or once an addict, always an addict, right. Or, whatever the topics that we hear are. Right. And everybody has their own beliefs around substance use. We believe it's a medical model. But that's something that label can be really difficult to deal with.
Right. And I mean, that's what keeps people in the fog so long, right? Is that they don't want to identify because of whatever stigmas, it's cultural, it's societal, it gets a lot of, it's crazy. A drug addict was looked at a little harsher than somebody that's alcoholic, right? You have these different paradigm shifts within different cultures and stuff that, like, if you look at it, it's kind of just really, it's really bad, man. It's like, it keeps people away from treatment, right? Yeah. And it's so readily available. I didn't know treatment was a thing, to tell you the truth. I didn't.
Another unsurprising thing, because it's not really as promoted. And so a lot of the work we do at TTC is really about being able to help the communities to see, hey, there are treatment facilities, there are places to go where you can find people who look like you, or, where you can safely go and talk about the things that have happened, those traumas that have happened, and all of that, and so that you can be healthy and you can be okay.
Right. And that's kind of the art right there. I think that's my insertion into why this purpose I live today, right? It's because I've lived it for so long that I know how important it is to get through all the stereotypes that are out about this population of people.
So you have this background. You just gave us, your life, your childhood in a snapshot. At what point after you get through with the justice system, you get out, at what point do you say, I want to now give back to the community as a drug counselor?
So after getting a few nudges from the judges to go to a treatment, I think this segment is very important. When I was first introduced to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, there was nobody that looked like me. I opened a book that's antiquated language saying about a guy coming home from war and the ominous warning, right? That didn't resonate with me, yourself. Right? I didn't show up in the book, right? And so a lot of times I would just fall on deaf ears, right? And it kind of, in some ways, kind of urged me to just get back to what I knew, right? This was well over my head. This wasn't for me, kind of thing.
Hold that thought. Give back. Give back. It inspired me to give back. I love that. We'll be back. We'll be back with Justin Lawrence. Okay, we are back with Justin Lawrence, and I'm so excited to continue this conversation. I just want to get directly into it. Now, Justin, before we broke, you were talking about how your experiences in 12 Steps really led you to feel like, I want to give back. I want to be able to help people so that they can see themselves when they come to a substance use counselor, a mental health counselor, when they come to a 12-step group. You decided to become one of my students at TTC College. And take me back to what made that decision for you.
Well, I mean, as we kind of gone over is, those experiences that I've had, right? I ultimately went on to be a union iron worker, right?
Wow.
And, it was for the money. But there was something still pulling at me. There was still something missing. I got to give big shout outs to Phoenix House as well.
Phoenix House is one of our big partners.
Phoenix House, Paul Jones does a wonderful job. Ron Wigley does a wonderful job. And they urged me to pray on it, right? And that they saw something in me, that something that I possess could be used by God. And I was told by another gentleman, Richard Roggs, that I needed to monetize my background.
Yeah, you can make money, helping people.
Right,
it's true.
And it didn't catch right away, but when I thought about it, that this is really all that I had gone through and all the discovery. If I can shorten somebody else's hardship by the words that I may use of my experience, hope, and strength, that I may do so. Because, I have a lot of people that are calling me and are never getting out. Some brothers,
me too.
They're never getting out.
Yeah.
And conversations that are awkward, moments of silence on the phone.
So you knew you needed to inspire people, but was there something that made you say, I want to go with TTC College?
So we get this. We do a long prayer. The next day, Andre from Hopix walks into the office and says, "Hey, we're looking for new counselors."
Wow. And I know Andre very well. We've
Yeah,
done some
shout out
projects together.
Andre. Shout out Andre. And they immediately brought it to me and said, "Hey, man, this is what you need to do.
Substance use counseling.
You need to be a counselor."
After all that you went through, all the
Right.
trauma, all the background,
Right.
they said they see it in you.
Right. I mean, and at the time, I couldn't deny the facts and the evidence that they were bringing to me. Right. It wasn't apparent, but then.
You have a natural gift. Anybody who sits with you, I've seen you talk all around this community. I have watched you run groups. I've seen you work one-on-one with people, and you have a natural gift. I've been in this field for over 20 years.
Thank you.
And I have seen a whole bunch of people, but you are a natural at healing people, you know, at talking to people. So it makes sense that they're saying, hey, Justin, you're a counselor. Like, we can tell, we want to open these doors for you. We want you to go to TTC College.
Well, first and foremost, I say this is God's work.
It is.
I've been crafted by the finest. All the things that I've gone through, I've been, it's His will for me, right? As much hurt as I've done to my community, it's only right that I can make some kind of amends, going back to the 12 steps, right? To kind of help. And when I do a further investigation of what community looks like and where we are today, I realize that we're far-fetched from what things, organizations, people stand on today and don't really know the connotation, right? Mm-hmm. Build and legion on organized development, community revolution, progress, brown berets, observe and protect, right? We're so far-fetched to where we're not even healing our community, but we're hurting our community. And so if I can edify anyway, if I can kind of, as Jesus, sit on the cross and allow you to see the wounds and say, listen, you don't have to do this, right? Like, then I'm going to do that, right? And hope that, I can serve as something in the rooms of AA, NA, SLA, right? That another younger man, maybe older man, comes in and identifies.
Yeah.
And sees
identifies
themselves
with you. They see themselves in
me.
you.
Right.
The way that you didn't see yourself in that book.
Come on. Or in the rooms when I went. Right? That so they hear something that it just either it be good or bad, but that it resonates with them.
Right.
Oftentimes in groups, there might be people that laugh, there may be people who cry. To me, that's a success.
Absolutely.
That
it's real.
It is jarring. They hear something that took them out of the I'm good, right?
That's why we need people who have what's called lived experience. And the experience that you just told us about, that's all lived. You have lived this life. And so when people see you, they see this is somebody who's been in my shoes. This is somebody who understands what it's like to be new in recovery.
Right.
This is somebody who understands the pain of detox, because there's a physical pain.
Right.
I worked in a detox unit for 5 years,
Yeah.
and it was the most pain I've ever seen a human being go through. Was going through alcohol withdrawals, going through opioid withdrawals.
Yeah.
You're doing this every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are a light for people. They look at you and they want to be like you. And they say, well, if Justin can make it, and he's sitting here trying to inspire us,
yeah.
then why can't I do it?
Right. And if only if you knew, I'm even sometimes, it's like a surreal moment, right? I have these surreal moments of like, I'm actually in front of me. Right, and so Tarzana was the route. Like I said, this is all God. I let go of the wheel a long time ago.
Your faith has been really important. I mean, I can tell, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I had to see the evidence of the things I couldn't see, man.
Yeah.
You know, and so I hoped, you know what I mean, that maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
and to come to Tarzana Treatment Center College and the welcoming, you know, shout out to Dr. Golden, shout out to Haben, shout out to Warren, shout out to so many others, man. Dr. Salazar, and just the compilation there. It met me on so many fronts that I knew that it had to be meant for me, right?
Thank you for those kind words. And, you know, we love our students. And I know people say that, but when we say we love them,
Right.
we love you guys fully.
Right.
You know, to the point where we will do whatever we can to support you. And we're not just seeing you as numbers.
Right.
We're not just seeing you as student tuition.
Right.
You know, we see you as a person.
Right.
And whatever we can do to support you, we can. So
Right.
you went through TTC College, you earned a certificate, you became a drug counselor, and you came and worked on our team.
I couldn't make it up. I mean, what an honor. Like moments like this. Look at, we're in the studio, man. I would never think this 23-hour lockdown. I would never think I would be here speaking to Dr. Golden. Dr. Golden in my life, doing a one-on-one. This is everyday life, man.
It is.
And they pay us for it. Ain't that something? That's the remarkable thing.
Earn a living.
Earn an actual career, not just a job, right? Something that I can really blossom. And it's not even work. This is not work.
You live this life. I've seen you live this life. We talk all the time. I've seen you show up to meetings outside of work hours. I've seen you go attend birthdays, you know, the sobriety birthdays. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with AA and NA, I've seen you go and support people in the community. This is your life.
Right, right.
You just happen, this is also your career.
Right.
So when you can find a passion that is aligned with who you are,
Come on.
and you can go to work and do that every day,
Come on.
and it doesn't feel like work, then you know you found your place.
And it gives you a room to learn. And it abides under the same kind of elements of recovery as that every day I get to learn, right? And
Never continuous learning.
Continuous
that's what we talk about.
Right.
We are never masters as counselors.
No.
That's the beauty of being in all of healthcare,
Right.
is that there's always a pandemic coming. There's always a new situation or a new form of trauma that somebody comes in with. We are always learning.
And you know, it is so baffling. The more I read, the more I know I don't know. The more I said, wow, I thought I knew a little something. And so that's an awesome feeling, to kind of be lifted off your feet, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we have some great leaders at our college. Dr. T, let me not say Dr. T, we have great faculty.
Dr. Alicia Thompson.
Yes, and Dr. Crystal Brown, right? And so the list goes on, and all the good work that the POD and Ubuntu and, you know, it's crazy. Our mission statement is what we actually live. Intersectionality, right? Integrity, community, excellence. I mean, like, that's what this whole story we just talked about, right?
It is. And you personify all of those different pieces. Now, this is what I want to ask you, because now you are becoming famous. I just went and saw you speak to a group in South Central earlier this week, and you know, you are very, very loved in the community, and these are people who are just coming out of jail, who at Gift of Life, which is an incredible organization out there that's providing housing, and you're speaking and you're inspiring and you're running groups and you're getting people educated. What works for you? You know, like what we all have our different ways of counseling. We have our different ways of peer support. But for you, what works when you talk to somebody who's out there and you're like, this is little Justin or this is big Justin, you know, somebody who went through what I went through, but they need to hear something from me. What works for you?
Well, I often say I like my recovery like I like my drugs, right? I don't want any cut.
Okay.
Raw and uncut. I want to get through all the thought distortions, the things that come out of our mouth and that are
clinical
untrue.
language.
Yeah. Well, I want to discard that I know the clinical language, but that I don't need to personify that. That's not something that they're going to know. Right? They're not going to know if I come to them and say, hey, it seems like you have a co-occurring disorder.
Right.
You know, what I can say is that, like, coupled with the long-term use of, like, methamphetamines, being bipolar is not uncommon.
Right.
Right. And so,
or if you're talking about co-occurring disorders, it could simply be, you know, when you smoke weed and you drink at the same time, it creates this situation, and you know what I'm talking about because you've experienced it, but it's talking to people in a level where they will understand what you are saying.
Right. And the things that we say, you know, I say, you know, like one of the key elements is something that's often said in that world. It's like, I'm on a good one. And then you're saying I'm on a good one, but there's nothing good going on. Right. So what are you really advertising? It's back to the first step. How honest are we being? Now, honesty is if you want to get what I have, then you're going to do what I do. So that means being honest. So we say you're on a good one. And if you leave here, you're going to try to get on a good one.
Yeah.
How good is it? How white are your whites? Your whites have turned khaki color. Job is not a thing. Family's not a thing. I mean, how good is it, right?
You're holding up a mirror and you're saying, this is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, right.
But how much of what you're saying is actual reality?
Come on. Let's get to the real, you know? How many fathers do we have? You know, when people start identifying things that they haven't been called in a while, right? They're fathers, but they haven't been dads.
That was so profound.
You know, it's just, this is a real attribute. Oh, then they raise their hand and realize, now, when's the last time you talked to your kids? When's the last football game?
Let me ask you this. You said something really powerful, which is there's all these different names that people have that they sort of lose over time, whether it's from being incarcerated or from being on the streets, being at the house, whatever it is, using drugs. How important is that to change how somebody sees themselves, to remember who they are? Almost like Simba from The Lion King when Mufasa was like, you need to remember who you are. You know, you're helping them see like, hey, you're not just somebody who uses drugs.
Right.
You're not just somebody who has a mental health disorder.
Right.
You're a father.
Right.
You're a child.
Right.
You are loved, you know, by your higher power.
Right.
You know, you are a citizen.
Right.
How important is it to help them see that again, see themselves as those people?
I mean that's the whole foundation of how I come at them, right? It's just how I was coming. What was jarring to me, right? Because it almost bring you to tears, right? Yeah. Because it's been repressed, and you know, I got a nickname. I don't even go by my old name, so I've detached, right? Disassociated from my old identity, right?
Or a lot of times I've heard in group that people don't feel like they deserve those titles anymore. Like, you know, I don't deserve to be called father because I haven't been there for my kid for all this time. Right. But you're coming back in and you're like, but you still are.
Right. Or better yet, I'm exemplifying, right?
That part.
You know, I get to tell them snippets of like what a great feeling is when your kids are having things to boogie monsters in the room,
right? And
daddy gets to show up and go get the boogie.
Get those monsters.
What a great feeling it is, because
wow.
If she's yelling and nobody comes, you only generational trauma is amongst you.
And now all those traumas that you talked about
Come on.
the first half, now they repeat for the generations that come
on,
after you.
Come on. So what are we doing is the question. Just like that. What are we doing?
So your philosophy and your approach is reality. It's getting real.
Yeah.
It's meeting your patients where they are. It's speaking their language.
Right. And whatever. I think what people often think when they think addict that, the acuity is to a certain, it's not as much as the normal, typical person, right? And I think it's quite the opposite. I think these are the most brilliant individuals
Absolutely.
that have never been able to actually blossom, right? I think the best kept secret, tell you the truth. I've sat down with
That's
JDs.
100% real.
Yeah, I've sat down with JDs. I've talked to people that, families are top 10%, whatever, 5%, and, they just come to an ultimate low and so disassociated from who they really were when they raised their hand as a kid and said, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a policeman.
So substances don't discriminate.
No, at all.
They don't care how much money you make.
They
don't care what color your skin is. They
on.
don't care what community you're in. We have seen patients from every demographic and background. Age.
On Medi-Cal.
Yep.
On Medi-Cal, by the way. So when you hear it and you say, wait, how did you? I understand. That's what the disease of addiction will do to you. Will bring you mangled, as the book would say.
Yeah.
And only then are you ready. Because it's kind of hard when everything's going good.
Right.
Everything's going good.
It is hard to say, well, let's make some changes. Let me try to live a healthier life.
Right.
Because everything, it feels good, but everybody hits that point where, and some people don't make it through that. This is what I wanted to ask you. Right now in Los Angeles, something that we're dealing with is exorbitantly high rates of overdose. And I know that part of your work is in helping this community to fight overdose deaths.
Right.
What are you doing? Tell us quickly, what are you doing to help people and help this community end overdose?
Well, we were talking about it a minute ago, gift of life, going into the outreach and talking to different sections of the community to get it out into the community, the actuality of the overdoses, the ability to save a life.
Through like Narcan
and
Kloxxado,
right? And for those that are in their addiction, the different medications that a place like Tarzana could provide that would help them with the withdrawals, right? Would help them with their cravings, right? So they can use training wheels, not necessarily jump on a bike and think they can balance, but use training wheels to kind of guide them back into where they would opt to be, right? And so
into that total healing, and to understand that, like you said, it's life or death.
This is life or death, and nobody's exempt. I often use, what will they say at your memorial? What will you give them to say at your memorial?
Justin, thank you so much for your service. You have no idea. I'm so proud of you and grateful for what you have done in this community. You are a light, you are a healer, and you are changing so many lives by helping other people get on their road to recovery the way that you have. God bless you, and thank you so much for your service. That's it, everybody. I'm done. I'm so happy that you guys got to get this conversation, and look out for more.
Brought to you by Tarzana Treatment Centers. You can visit our website at www.tarzanatc.org or call 1-800-996-1051.